and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, good evening. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Ms. Larraba? Here. Mr. Leahy? Mr. Leary?
Here.
Ms. Martin?
Here.
Mayor Milanazzo?
Here.
Mr. Conway?
Here.
Ms. Doherty?
Here.
6 yeas, 6 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Do we have any special orders of business this evening? Hearing none, moving on. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting held on Wednesday, September 21st. Motion by Ms. Larraba, second by Mr. Leary. Any comments, questions? Ms. Larraba? No. Okay, that's okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes as presented signify by saying aye. Opposed? It's a vote. Thank you. Next item, permission to enter. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Kerry Gillis for $8,000 from provided funding by the FY12 local budget professional development account to collaborate with the program director of the Lowell program for licensure and to help with that review.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Any questions? Motion to approve by Ms. Martin, second by Ms. Larraba. Roll call.
Ms. Larraba?
Yes.
Mr. Leahy? Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Milanazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent.
Thank you. Moving on to memorials. I'd like to have a moment of silence in darkened chambers for the following. Robert Bo Collette, retired paraprofessional at the Butler Middle School and former cook manager at the Bartlett and Butler Schools. Stella F. Strykowski Diamantopoulos, mother of John Diamantopoulos, Bartlett School custodian. Virginia Holland, mother of Ruth Holland, Wayne Middle School clerk. And John A. Cronin, retired principal of the Bartlett Junior High School. May we all rise now, a moment of silence. Thank you. May they rest in peace. Under unfinished business, we have 5 positions. The superintendent is looking for permission to post. Madam Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, these are the 5 positions that were determined when we talked about the restructuring of the curriculum office. These positions are the coordinator of pre-K through 4th grade mathematics, coordinator of grades 5 through 12 mathematics, coordinator of grades pre-K through 4 English language arts and literacy, coordinator of grades 5 through 12 English language arts and literacy, coordinator of science, social studies, pre-K to 12. The memo that you have here has the attached job descriptions for each one of those jobs in the restructuring that we had discussed and was approved at the last curriculum subcommittee meeting. I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Any questions, comments? Do I have a motion? Motion by Ms. Doherty, second by Mr. Conway. Roll call.
Ms. Larraba?
Yes.
Mr. Leahy? Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Milanazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Thank you. Do we have anything under public participation this evening? Hearing none, moving on to the motions. We have 3 motions before us this evening. The first one is a joint motion by Mr. Leahy and Mr. Leary to request the superintendent provide the school committee with an update regarding the Lowell High School parent-student portal. The report should contain the number of parents that are now able to view the child's school status and how many parents are not yet able. In addition, what action steps are in place that will ensure 100% access. Chair recognizes Mr. Leary.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, this is a motion Mr. Leahy and I put on. As we all know, the portal to high school began last, I believe, February or March of 2011. We're hearing some comments that there's a lot of interest from both the teachers and the students, but there's some challenges in terms of getting it implemented for everybody. I think it's imperative that this gets done as soon as possible. Mr. Leahy and I, we met with several teachers actually who want to utilize it, and we're not able to get it ready to go for them. So anything we can do to make it work, if there's something the committee needs to do, please let us know so we can take action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. I think I would like a second from the floor. Mr. Leahy's not here. Mr. Doherty, second the motion. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Next motion, also by Mr. Leahy and Mr. Leary, request the superintendent provide the Lowell School Committee a timeline and action plan for the implementation of the student portal program for grades K through 8. Mr. Leary, second by Ms. Doherty. Mr. Leary.
Just to get a plan in place is just self-explanatory. I think it speaks for itself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, to vote. Last motion of the evening by Ms. Doherty, request the superintendent report on the status of the light and sound systems in the Burgoyne Theater of the Lowell High School Freshman Academy. The report should include current status and recommendations on updating equipment to enable the theater to be used as a fully functional performance venue. Second by Mr. Leary. Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's come to my attention that actually the Burgoyne Theater has not really been able to function as a performing arts space for a while. I've been hard-pressed to find a year the last time it really had working theater lights and a sound system. And that's really my intention with this motion, to get a report of what is in place and what needs to happen so that we can use that space as a performing arts space for our students. And I think it's important to distinguish between lights that are floor lights that turn on when you walk into the room and theater lights, which are lighting you need in order to have a production on the stage. It's my intention that we bring this theater back to use, but I would look to get a report on what's involved in doing that. I think that not only would it benefit our students and our families involved with performing arts in the schools, but it would also be a venue that we could rent out to community groups. And, we've got the space. Let's do what needs to be done to make it usable. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Do we have any subcommittee reports this evening? Moving on to the reports of the superintendent. MCAS status report. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, the committee has a report with details of the MCAS result, the current MCAS we just got, 2011. And I have a PowerPoint prepared to make it come alive so that the data makes sense to you all, and is highlighting the good and what we need to work on in realistic terms. So I just want to direct you all to your attention to the TV screens here. And first of all, I'd like to everybody to look at the growth at headline news, the Merkland School. It was the school that had the top growth in the Commonwealth, and so you all know that the governor did come to us, and he was with us, and as you go on, you'll see that we made AYP in the aggregate in the subgroups in both ELA and mathematics. And prior to 2011, we had not made AYP since 2002. So that was a great deal of growth in that particular school. This committee is quite well aware of the steps that we've had in place. You've been very actively involved in the Merkland planning, knowing about the progress and supporting that all the way throughout the process. And so that kind of collaboration and that kind of belief systems is what, in fact, progress is all about. So there are many moves at the Merkland School that we are most definitely trying to just make happen all the way across the system. Shared leadership is a very important component of that. So as we look forward, it surpassed, the Merkland surpassed level 4 exit criteria, the state median growth, and it was among the top 20th schools in math growth. If you look at the chart that you have here, you'll see that the Merkland School growth in 2010 was 22, and last year it was 57. So that's really, really important, 57%. In mathematics, it was exceptional difference from 31.5% in 2010 to 2011 being 80% growth. So it was a substantial, focused look at progress, and so that's a very good news story. For more detail, as you look at the chart you're most used to as far as growth goes, you'll see the mathematics growth in the Merklin 2010-2011 in this chart where you see the 80% in mathematics. And in English language arts, you again see that 53%. So that is a really good news story, the growth we've seen, the focused work. That work will continue. The interesting part about the Merklin School is it's this year when the annual gains begin. So last year does not count towards the 3-year race to the top outcomes, which is fabulous because that means we'll just make this growth times 3. And so we'll have this kind of outcome that will continue over time. The next big success story that we want to talk about is the Morey School. They were accommodation school for the second consecutive year. They've narrowed the proficiency gap. They have changed in their status. So over time, they now have no status in English language arts and in mathematics, and there are so few schools in the state, only 18 schools in the state have exited from accountability status, so that is great news for the Merklin. I was fortunate enough the other day to be at the Merklin School at a afternoon planning meeting. We're just talking about the goals of the district, and they're very excited about this accommodation school status. They've worked very hard, and they continue that work. They know about targeted teaching, which is the goal of our system, so it was very exciting to be with them. The third story of great growth is the Lincoln School. And so they've had high growth in 2010 and 2011. If you look at the growth charts, the growth data percentiles, you will see that in 2010 and 2011, there's been substantial growth in this school. So they've made gains in both English language arts and mathematics as a district, and it's very high when you look at the totals. So you have 69% high to very high growth in English language arts, and you have, what is that? My adding's not that great. 53% in mathematics. So that being the gains that are made at that school. Now we're going to go to regular grade 4. Grade 4, we saw some growth over time, and we made gains, especially in mathematics, in English language arts. And so as we look at the gains in the 4th grade, we see the chart that we're used to. And so we have a little bit in mathematics. We did a little better than last year, and we're just about the same in ELA. The next chart is an interesting chart, and this is one that Mr. Schlickman has provided for us over time. And it really shows the district versus the state. And so I'm going to have you look at the fact that when you look at the district versus the state trends pretty almost exactly to the gains in the state, which actually tells a lot about the reliability and validity of the MCAS test. So where we stay the same almost, it's almost quite interesting. When you look at the growth data, we exceed the state in growth, and so that's what you're seeing in the ELA scores and the mathematics scores, is that there's growth in both areas. In mathematics, we did see some gains in both areas, and the very interesting part, and this is substantial work that was done last year that Mr. Schlickman and the curriculum office, the superintendent did with teams. We looked at the alignment. How does the MCAS align with the scores that they're getting, kids are getting on report cards? And so you can see the difference. It's interesting if you see last year we had substantial difference between MCAS proficiency scores and the grades that were given to children. So there was great growth the next year. If you look at how, in fact, when you look at the stacks almost, that they're much more aligned. So where a child that this year had a proficient score, their scores on their report card were pretty much similar. It was only off by a little bit. And since Paul worked substantially on this particular part last year, I'm going to ask him to talk a little bit about the alignment project, if you would.
Yeah, this is really a subtle thing that most people will not notice. Thank you, Superintendent Franco, Mayor, and School Committee. Most people in looking at MCAS scores from afar, or the newspaper looking at the MCAS scores, would not necessarily pick up on something like this. Of course, we're not giving them our report card scores. But this, while it appears to be subtle, is a fairly substantive move for the district. Because when we take a look, if we bounce these back and forth, you can just see how 2010 is way out of line and 2011 really has tightened up to be very close. And this is significant. When we saw last year's pattern in 2010, we went into all the fourth grades. We talked to the fourth grade teachers and asked them, why do you think this is happening? And some of them gave us feedback that said that the information that we were giving them led them to believe that kids were doing better than the MCAS would, because we're doing Fontes and Pinnell, and the national standards are below what would be required to hit proficiency in the MCAS. So if we tell them that the national standard for the MCAS for Fontes and Pinnell is at S, but you really need to be at a U before we can believe that with any kind of certainty that a student is going to be proficient, that bit of knowledge is really critical for teachers in terms of getting a sense for, is a child on target for state proficiency? And so that the clarity of what proficiency was counts. And as teachers become more aware of where they need to get the kids to, they are going to be more effective at getting them there. And so we think that the whole exercise that we did last year of going forth and giving them this data and inviting them into a conversation about what it really meant was very important. If you recall last year when we brought out the growth data, we were concerned about a couple of grades in particular. Towards the bottom of our chart were 4, 10, and 5. And 10 and 5 makes sense on one level because they're transition grades. Their previous test was in a different school, and because of the way our system is designed, there's a lot of different schools feeding into the recipient school. So it's not uncommon throughout the Commonwealth to see transition grades with a drop-off in the growth data. But the fourth grade was really a puzzle, and the fact is that we were able to have these conversations with our teachers about the growth scores and about student achievement made a difference. And this year, the fourth grade data is, in mathematics, is slightly above the state average. And in ELA, it's come much closer to the state average. So we've seen considerable improvement in grade 4 in a year that the state scores on MCAS actually declined. So we went up in grade 4 while the state declined in grade 4. That's the one place where we were bucking the overall state pattern. But you can see that we tend to be very, very strong in middle school mathematics, grades 6, 8, and 7, do very well compared to the state average, and some schools do historically very, very well in this element. And it's similar to the pattern last year where 8, 6, and 7 flip places. This year again, fourth grade was towards the bottom, fifth grade for 2011 moved down, and fourth grade moved up. So our two transition grades are at the bottom in 2011. Similarly, if we're taking a look at ELA data, we just wanted to show you a couple more samples of the data that show that as we tend to go up, the state tends to go up. As we tend to go down, the state tends to go down. And that's been a pretty consistent pattern for us since I've been in the district, and I've been doing these reports now for the past 10 years. Similarly, mathematics, we had a little dip in 2010 in fifth grade and sort of ended up back in the trend. Our math on the warning side tends to flow with the state as well. 10th grade ELA. Statewide, this is the highest performing test. Statewide, only 3% of the kids are in the failing category, 84% are proficient or advanced. Again, our slope tends to mirror the state, though we do have concerns on the growth numbers over at the high school. Similarly for mathematics, we can see that same pattern as the state level has risen over the years. Our level of proficiency has risen along with it. This is the growth score chart that you're accustomed to for grade 10. You can see that for mathematics, we've actually lost a little ground this year compared to the previous year. We now have 27% in the very low growth and 21% in the low growth in 2011 mathematics. We've increased the number of very low growth, but also very high growth in English language arts. But that remains, a challenge of a transition year, and this is an issue that is going to speak to vertical articulation that I'm sure that you're going to be hearing more about in the future. And now I want to turn it back over to Superintendent Franco, who'll discuss the way some of this differentiates out between different groups in the district.
Thank you, Mr. Schlickman. Just to get back to the vertical articulation piece, in meeting with teachers, and I'm meeting with teachers in the afternoon at every school individually, the vertical unpacking the vertical teaming is really what you're going to see in the goals and communication goals as far as the educational part of the communication goals, because it is very apparent that although we do study the data internally in buildings, it's that transition time that I'm most concerned about, because we're not seeing the growth in those transition years that we need to see. So that formal planning of using the release time in schools, receiving schools, that'll be much more formalized this year, because that's the information that we really know we have to improve on. This next chart is something that I thought was important to show the growth and the needs of the subgroups. So here we have all students, the children who are non-poverty, children in poverty, regular education, the LEP children in their standing in the MCAS, as well as children with special needs. And so you'll see that our kids who are regular education children are really doing quite well. The children who are non-poverty are doing quite well. They're substantially more than 70% overall are in the advanced and proficient categories. As we look at the challenges that we have with other groups of children, it's not so substantially positive. And so we know we have work to do in all areas. But if we're looking as the children, the non-poverty children, in regular education, that we do see some good growth, and we actually can compete against other like districts in our area. And so I wanted to unpack that a bit to let people know that we are focused on groups, but we also want to let the public know, as well as the committee, that the children who are in our system, who are not in poverty, are doing quite well, and there is some cause for congratulations in that area. They're doing quite well, and so that was something I wanted to show by subgroups. The other part that I just wanted to touch upon was that the goals and the vision for the school district is all about excellence in teaching and making sure that our children are ready for any future endeavors that they would want to undertake. And so the vision of the school system looks at what do children know and what are they able to do, and focusing on their strengths as a whole body. The core values of the school system we've talked about before, but these are the ones I'm unpacking for goals by the end of this year. Communication, oversight, and shared leadership. So we're looking at, in fact, how our communication is impacting the overarching progress of our young people. Looking at the work we do. When you plan something, looking at your data, making sure there's growth when there's an initiative, not continuing because of the history of an initiative, so the oversight of the work that we do. And what we're learning through our work at Merklin and other places, the most successful progress we have, there is definitely shared leadership. So there's empowerment of teachers, as belief systems in children, teachers, and leaders as a cohort, and that's something very important for us to unpack. So that's our first goal. The response to instruction model, I've talked about this every time we've spoken, every time I'm on television. I just said it again for a little blurb you'll see on Channel 22. We have to look at what children know and what they're able to do if they are at or above grade level, or if they came to the country yesterday morning. You've heard me say that before. The focused teaching of kids meeting and exceeding their expectations is the work of the school district. knowing the data, teaching accordingly, know as you go, and checking in on that. So that's the second most important core value that we know we have to make sure to plan effectively. And then we have that focused look, and you can see by the data in the prior sheet of our children with special needs. Children with special needs, no matter what their disability, they are going to be citizens, and they need to be productive citizens in the future of our country. So we're looking at them with a very targeted eye. And that's the work overall that we know our MCAS scores from the past support these goals. And I wanted to point out the major trends that we saw in our results. So I offered that report to the committee, and I ask if you have any questions or any areas that you want to see more information. I welcome your response.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Thank you, Mr. Schlickman. Ms. Larraba.
I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation, and also to congratulate your administration and the staff and the teachers for all the hard work that went into getting these results and working with the children to make sure that they were getting to where they need to be for their testing scores. And I look forward to seeing this trend continue as we go forward.
Thank you. Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Madam Superintendent, I have a couple questions on, in your report on page 3, the graph contained there. I don't know if you can direct me to whoever should answer it. I'm just trying to figure out, without a key, what are these numbers that we're tracking? Is this individual students?
Yeah.
So we've got 550. What is that relating to? Is that just a random number that we picked? And then the number says, if I go through across this line, it will show me the total number of students who are included in this comparison?
Thank you. The scale on the left is the number of students, so that if you take a look on the PowerPoint display, there are 2 scales. The yellow scale is for the report card grade, and for that second column, those are the children who received a 2, which is area of progress on the report card, and the green column is the needs improvement scale on the MCAS. So we can see that in this case, in 2011, 469 fourth graders received a 2 in their report card in this content area, and 442 were in needs improvement. Our standards-based report card is designed to be aligned to the concepts of the MCAS of warning needs, proficient and advanced.
So what you're comparing in the top is basically the number of students who rated as an area of concern based on their report card was 80, and the ones who rated in that same area based on MCAS results was 258.
Yeah. I'm not looking at the paper, I'm looking at the screen, but that is...
Okay, wasn't that the same thing? Yeah, I'm sorry.
If you use that
I
screen...
can't
it'll
see
be
the screen,
easier
that's too far away from me.
Yeah.
Okay, so looking at the disparity in the numbers of students, is that something that we've taken into consideration?
Yeah, in 2010, the disparity was very large, as you can see.
No, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the actual number of students. If we had 2,000 students, which based on my rough math is what we had in 210, and then we only had 1,700 students based on...
Actually, each student is represented twice, once in the yellow bar and once in the green.
So we had
that
1,000 in 2010, and what? Well,
the numbers will be slightly off because you do have some alternative assessment kids on the MCAS, and you do have some kids who either transferred out afterwards or are alternatively assessed due to an IEP. So they're not always going to line up 100%. We're not correlating kids exactly to kids. We're doing actual direct counts from these categories, so the numbers won't be totally equal, but they're pretty close.
Would they give us an indication then that we had several hundred more students in 2010 than we do in 2011?
I think you had more kids in 2010 than 2011. Just looking at the data.
Yeah, just looking at the numbers, that's what it would indicate to me. That's what I'm trying to figure out. So, which would be, an interesting thing. If we had a smaller class size in one year that was significant, I mean, several hundred students would be pretty significant.
Yeah,
in terms of a drop-off.
The interesting thing here is, to be more illustrative, is the decline in the number of threes and the increase in number of twos to be aligned to where the MCAS scores are. And you could also see that last year we only had 288 proficient, and this year we have 302. So that number increased. So you're seeing increase on the proficient and advanced on the report card, and a decrease on the report on the MCAS, and a decrease on the report card that's more or less coming in. I won't have firm numbers on enrollment. I wasn't prepared to make that discussion, but from my recollection, is the current third, fourth is about the tail of the decline in the enrollment as we're going into grades 2, 1K, is where we're starting to see those numbers
go up
pick
again.
up again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Ron. I just have a couple of comments and a quick question or two. First off, I want to say I'm thrilled that we did the breakout in terms of looking at our students who are not in poverty, and that we're doing, as well as the suburbs, and maybe even better in many cases. Because I think when we look at the overall scores across the state, it is often the urban communities that fall to the bottom of the list. And then the assumption that people make is, oh, they're not good schools. When in fact, our students come with more challenges, like the language issues. And of course, we know that poverty, the cycle of poverty and housing, and what the impacts that has on students' ability to learn. So I think it's reassuring for our middle-class families to know that, we have these challenging obstacles, and we're working towards getting those subgroups up. But meanwhile, our students from middle-class families are doing very well, and that's good. And I appreciate that separation out and discussing that. And I guess my other question, it's really kind of when we look at the great growth that we made at the Merkland, and I know that there were extra supports in place. We had some extra funding from the state. But I wonder if we have really examined what were the changes, the interventions that we are able to duplicate in our other schools, that we could use the Merkland as a model. And if we've looked at, I guess the part that really interests me is, and I know there's money that comes with that, there's a need for resources to do that, the extra time that teachers had to meet together and plan, and the extra outreach with families. Have we been looking at what are we able to duplicate in some of our other schools that the Merkland success would demonstrate? And then I have one other question after that, sorry.
Thank you. Madam Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the work that we do not have the volume of funding by any means, because we know that that's a substantial money, and the race to the top money at the Merkland School is $750,000 a year. So that allows for them to have an extra hour every day throughout the school year. They have an extra hour. However, the work that we're doing in our other buildings is looking at data in the same meaningful ways. We have leadership teams that create the same kind of pockets of inquiry, and we look at the data. And the district, through professional development funding, it has funded time for teachers to get together, so they're looking at data 3 specific times during the school year. So they're looking at the formative data. Every time the mathematics testing is upgraded, or every time the literacy is new tested, or we're doing our benchmark testing, that is a focused look. And so as a district, we have what we call data summits, where the schools are looking at the data as they go. To me, it's never as powerful as looking at them incrementally. A young person needs to be checked on all the time, and that's the formative data that teachers and schools are looking at. So that's part of it. Part of the funding that we used last year, and we have in Race to the Top, is the inquiry funding, where we're looking at data with children, and then teachers have some time after school where they can come together and study, research, and look at what, in fact, best practices are. Because, as I say to the teachers as I'm going to all the meetings, together we know a lot, but separately we know a lot, but together we're a very powerful team. And people bring their strengths together in that way. So there is money for after-school planning, not to the extent of the Merkland School, but we do have that in the Race to the Top initiative. That's the work we're doing. And at Leadership, even today, we look at the outcomes, and the principal from the Merkland School reports quite regularly. Even in the educator evaluation part of the new law, which will be how we evaluate next year, we're talking about that with our union officials and with our teachers. So it's not an isolated initiative. And, you know, last year as Deputy Superintendent for Curriculum, I said, so goes the Merkland, so goes the district. We are using as much as we possibly can the resources learned there. And so leaders, teachers, sharing. And we know that there's more collaboration work, but the extra funding is all focused towards empowering teachers to work together as a team to know their students and teach them well.
Ms. Doherty, follow-up?
I just want to, I have one follow-up, but I want to clarify something, make sure I heard you correctly. You said the Merkland, it's a $750,000. Is that a year or over a 3-year period? I thought it was a 3-year period.
A year, each year for 3 years.
Each year,
So
750,000. So that is a significant additional resource. Okay, so my other question really speaks to the high school. And maybe your answer would just be the same, or maybe there is something differently that you're doing. But since we've been watching the growth, we've had a couple of years of looking at the growth, and we've seen that the high school has not been making the kinds of growth that we're seeing K-8. Well, I know we're not testing K to really, but I mean, what do you see has been, Mr. Schlickman in his presentation, he talked about the alignment of the curriculum. What has been happening at the high school to try to really get up to speed on this, that, you know, we're not seeing the kind of growth that, you know, the students kind of get there and seem to stall in terms of what the growth model is telling us, and what are some initiatives, and maybe they, if they're, you know, specific to the high school, that would be of interest to me at this point. Thank you.
yeah, I'm going to be very honest about the high school. We have much work to do in the structures. High schools don't have the formative assessment that other levels have. We do have common quarterly assessments, but they're not normed. We do have other measurements, grades, failure rate, things like that. But as far as the level of literacy, we've brought the testing of knowing the diagnostic parts of reading to the 9th grade. The grade test has expanded to the 9th grade this particular year. So when I did speak to the teachers at the high school, I said, what worries me long-term in educator evaluation is I don't have the formative data that I have in middle schools. You can look at a little kid, say, perchance, he's above grade level and goes 2 more grades. You can say, wow, look at how well this child did. You can tell how each child does in pre-K all the way through 9 now as far as growth. And in the high school, that's not the kind of data you have, so I'm worried about that. Communication system-wide, the high school is the only school that does not have consistent common planning time. They have prep time, and they have a little bit at the freshman academy, and in the academies, Lyceum is one place where they have some common planning, but it's not every day. The power of teachers planning together is immeasurable. And so, I said this before. Ed Rosmerick was the headmaster. If you change the high school at Lowell High, if you change the schedule at Lowell High and you don't get common planning, you shouldn't bother changing the schedule, because the power of the fact that there is a prep time and there is another duty period, the time, if that's ever scheduled together, and I know at one point there was a committee that was looking at different schedules when we were trying to save money. So the high school is challenging as far as getting together. There are 2 things we're going to do immediately, though, just so you know. The vertical teaming that's been going on for a good number of years, we're really looking at what's being accomplished at that teaming and expanding it to make sure all the middle schools are on those teams. The other part about vertical teaming that's challenging to me is you can have a member going to that vertical team, but if it's not going back to the school in a meaningful way, then the meetings are wonderful, and the university's happy, and the college is happy, and the teachers participating are happy, but the school system is not benefiting from the results. So through the Mass Core, money. And some of the Common Core money, we have to customize that vertical teaming. So when a person comes from the Pine Arts or from whatever school, the Sullivan, they're bringing that back. And so we have had vertical teams, but I'm really, we're between Mrs. Abrams and myself, looking at what the work is and if it's making a difference on the data. And that's something we're looking at right now. The vertical teaming, it's existed, but has it impacted outcomes for kids? And in 10th grade, it's not. And so it's a reality check. So our teachers at the high school, they do have some time to get together with some common planning when we arrange it with the data summit piece, but you know, it's this really huge organization that we have to look at to make sure we get everybody, and that's our probably number one challenge in central office this year, to make sure that the high school is supported in a way to be looking at information in a way that makes their teaching, you know, be reflecting the needs of the kids.
I'm sorry, just one more follow-up with the high school. They've had the early release, the monthly early release, longer than anyone, because I believe we just started it on a pilot program in the last couple of years. Is that time that could be used for pulling in some of these initiatives as well, or be better used for that? Are you looking at that time as well? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Hardy, thank you. The high school planning is used for department, it's used for some NEASC things. Again, it's now the next round of getting ready for the outside study. However, today at Leadership, we reviewed the common district goals, and every teacher knowing those common district goals. So the curriculum office, trained principals and assistant principals yesterday to bring back the common message to every school. The high school will get that planning as far as a common message, all of these goals, what we're talking about. And so that message goes back clearly. The other half of the release time is for school use, and so that's where they're looking at data and they're making plans. Most times at the high school, after the initial meeting or whatever the big meeting is, they go into the departments and they look at information. And so it is our job, that's part of the purpose of the new coordinators, who will absolutely be able to make sure that they're supporting the high school with the department chairs. And they work quite well now, but we have to formalize it more because the data is telling us we need to focus.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Larry?
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Thank you for you and your team putting the report together. I'm very thankful to the Merkland School as well. It's a good job by the folks over there. They did an outstanding job. I wish we could take the $750,000 and put it in every school, because a lot of our other folks are really chomping at the bit to do the same type of work that the Merkland did. That's obviously not going to happen. What's a little different here is the Morey School. If you're looking at the Morey School over time, the Morey School, when I first got on the school committee, that was a school that was virtually, in disarray, I guess is probably the best way of saying it, and a change in leadership at the principal at that location, working with the teachers as opposed to, dictating to people how their job should be, really changed that school around. They had, a little bit of extra money, but they didn't have anywhere near, $750,000 a year. So it does bode well when we choose principals who know how to work with people and still hold them accountable. We can reap the benefits, and hope to see that in some of the schools that we've made changes in over the past year, who don't need to be named. But I think that is the first key ingredient in having success. Having folks who can lead and work with people and still hold them accountable. So I think the Morey School is a perfect example of how that actually developed. Again, I look forward to taking a look at some of the plans as we look at the high school, et cetera. Good stuff so far, but we have a lot of work to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. Anything else in the report? Motion by Mr. Hardy, seconded by Mr. Leary to accept the report as a report of progress. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. The next report from the superintendent, sports-themed school, childhood obesity. I believe this was as a result of a motion by Mr. Conway. Madam Superintendent?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In response to the motion by Mr. Conway that was made in the summer, he was asking to explore the feasibility to create sports-themed schools at our middle school and K-8 citywide schools. So in trying to unpack that idea, And being lucky enough to be a superintendent of schools, I have been exposed to many different business partners who are really interested in us becoming a team, having common goals. And so the focus of Mr. Conway's important motion here, we did some research and thought that it would be really very interesting if we unpacked it in a way that would be meaningful over time. And so that would be to look at the epidemic of childhood obesity. So sports would become part of the response, but also part of the response could also become the teaching and the nutrition and the learning that families need to have to make that kind of change. And so I provided you all with all the terrible data, you know, the epidemic level of our children, and unfortunately Massachusetts is even at more risk than the nation and the number of obese children we have. And if you look at the details, it just talks about the long-term effects and, in fact, how dangerous the health risks are over time. So we in Massachusetts, just for one fact, our figures indicate that between 25% and 30% of 10 to 17-year-old children are overweight or obese. And we know as parents to this generation of children that the activity and the outside activity, because of safety, has changed substantially. So these are some of the recommendations that I would like to bring forward to many partners, anybody interested in this as an initiative across our city. And it's not like I have $1 million. It is the fact that if we look at this epidemic and the good of our young people, in fact, I think we could do great things in this city because there are many different partners and nonprofit agencies that have some structures already in place. And so here's what I was thinking for first steps. And Mr. Conway, I apologize, this will not answer your motion in one day, but it will be a plan that I hope is comprehensive enough to benefit a lot of young people. So I propose the following steps. Create a planning team of specialists from the school department, other private parochial schools, and other business and community partners. And many partners have been interested in many of the initiatives that we sponsor. Develop after-school programs that focus on nutrition. So the learning piece for young people is not, activity's really important, but to reteach what a good nutrition program is. We don't have the benefit in our middle schools of having health teachers because of budget cuts over time in even though health standards are taught by someone, not every child is taught by a certified health teacher. Then to look at part of the nutrition in these after-school or Saturday-type programs, to look at specialized activity, focused play, where we could do some of the sports that would be of interest. If we look at the facilities, example, Pine Arts has tennis courts, so maybe that would be a tennis school down the road, just to look at that. And then, in essence, we'd have to look for funding sources, but we'd have to also all share our funding sources because there are ways that an amazing city like Lowell can do amazing things for its young people if we all talk together and how, in fact, we can commingle our funds. And then my biggest one, for a person who's been on a diet since she was 12, we best be teaching the families really what, in fact, is the best practice. What are ways that we can teach families, because children go home and nutrition starts at home. And so that's always interesting, the parent involvement piece. I think we all try so desperately to involve our parents, but this might be something that might be of interest. Those are some of the ideas. It would have to take the road of a steering committee. We'd have to look for funding, but that's how I'm thinking we can best unpack the motion, Mr. Conway, that you put forward, and I ask for any suggestions or feedback.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Mr. Conway?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to say that, Madam Superintendent, you took a relatively simple idea and brought it to a completely different positive level, and I congratulate you, and I certainly congratulate your team in putting this report together. I think what you have certainly shown us that this is something extremely important going forward, and I think it's going to be a project that is going to be exciting to work on, and again, it's not going to be accomplished overnight. And I think what you also pointed out, which is extremely important, which I have said quite often on the floor, and that is the fact that partnerships are so extremely important, especially in difficult times. And I think this is a perfect example, and I think a lot of our partners would be very willing to help us out in this particular project. But I'd also like to say, too, that when this idea came up a number of months ago, I want to publicly thank a couple of my colleagues, because I spent a lot of time picking their brains and trying to help me out with this. Because again, I think we realized that going forward, it was going to be extremely important. It wasn't just about sports. Sports was only a small portion of it, and it was a vehicle to something that was much more important, as the superintendent just pointed out, in regards to obesity and also the encouraging a healthier lifestyle. So I do want to thank Jim Leary and Connie Martin, because I've contacted them numerous times in this particular area and talked to them, and they were very, should we say, very patient with me on it. And again, I thank you very much for it. But again, I want to thank you for this report, Madam Superintendent. I think it's very inclusive, and I'm looking forward to see how it's going to unfold in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I certainly echo my colleagues' comments. I'd also say, just from the perspective of looking at the partners, community teamwork is certainly an agency that I know would be very interested and willing to help in this regard. I think one of the key partners that I'd love to see added to this would be Aramark, our food service company. I mean, I think looking at the opportunities to improve the quality of product that's being provided to our students, recognizing that investments in that could make a huge difference. And certainly if it's folded in with some of the educational aspects and kind of exposure to good eating habits, I think we could have a real impact, and they would be a very important partner in making that happen. So I'd certainly recommend including them. And also the whole concept, and I know it was something that they had expressed willingness to discuss, the whole concept of working together with the agricultural community here in our area. We have a number of different farms, very high-functioning farms, and we really could put in place, I think, a farm-to-school program that could just be an extraordinary opportunity, speaks to a number of different issues that the generation we're educating right now is going to be dealing with in truly profound ways. And I think those are some interesting just additions that of, I guess, different perspectives that it would be great to have at the table as we go through this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Anyone else on the report? Motion by Mr. Conway, second by Ms. Martin, to accept the report on the sports-themed schools as a report of progress. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Next report, recycling participation in our schools. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel very socially conscious this evening. Recycling. The City Hall administrator here, Gunther Wallenstein, has been in contact with me many times, and so we really wanted to make a formal kind of move towards recycling. And so since there's so much out there that people are doing, we thought that middle schools and high schools would be a really wonderful place to start a formal recycling kind of move. So it's actually started that each school is going to name a recycling teacher, a person who will take this on as a project, and the children would be involved in it. At this particular time, just like the young people who came before this meeting, were asking about the receptacles, so we're just trying to get these schools equipped with the right amount of proper disposals for recycling. And so between Brian Curley at the head of operations for the Lowell Public Schools and And Gunther, we're trying to determine how we can indeed take advantage of the Massachusetts program right now, which right now they are giving us recycling bins and those kind of needed receptacles for us to get this going. So at this particular point, we're all going to join the DEP, I guess it's called, it's the agency. Once you join that, then you can then qualify to get these free materials. And then, in fact, if we have to buy some from the city, we will look at that. But we want to make sure that we do good things with paper. We don't do anything with plastic, and so we could improve much more. The best thing that Gunther said to us at our meeting was, he said that just like in your homes in Lowell and my home in Tewksbury, you have less space to throw your garbage away, that recycling is going to have to be the way we collect trash in our schools also. So we're getting prepared. We will, in fact, see how well we do and see if mid-year we can move towards including elementary schools. But I want us to start this project in a way that's going to be successful and not saying we have to, I don't want to be sitting here next year talking about this again. So we're going to see how this, in fact, can take off. And it's unfunded, but we'll do the best we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Martin and Ms. Doherty.
Thank you. I believe, and you can please correct me if I'm wrong, that at the Butler, we'd have a bit of a step ahead at this point, because I know, having visited the Butler, that Principal Connerton, they had a green team in place where they had the kids engaged with a lot of these activities already. Just to say that as you're bringing this whole effort together, it certainly seemed like something the students were very enthused about, and that they were, it was really a part of their everyday at the Butler, and they might be a real leader for us to help us kind of build this program and let it spread.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty.
Thank you. I'd just like to say through you to the superintendent, Madam Superintendent knows how near and dear this whole issue is to me. I think it's been years since I initially made the motion. My husband is a member of the Green Building Commission, so I can come home and tell him, yes, we are moving forward. I know we've tried in the past, so I appreciate the whole approach, looking at it as a pilot, and I would ask for an update mid-year, whenever you feel like you've got something to tell us. And just, I think it's definitely something we should be doing in all our schools, and the earlier the better to get our children and families on board with the whole recycling effort. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything else? Motion by Ms. Martin, seconded by Ms. Doherty to accept the report on the recycling participation in our schools as a report of progress. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Next item, MSBA Green Repair Program. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Continuing with the theme of this evening, the Green Repair Program. We have taken advantage of the Massachusetts School Building Authority funding, where we have had the roof replaced at Lowell High School and the Riley, also the windows in the roof at the Moody, and the windows and the boils at the Washington School. These projects are undergoing. I do not know the details, so I'm going to ask Mr. Lang if he can talk off the top of his head about them.
Deputy Superintendent Lang.
Thank you. This is actually very exciting news for us. Last Thursday, well, I'm very excited. Last Thursday, we attended the MSBA board meeting where they approved Lowell's 4 projects that were in the pipeline. So if you recall, about a year or so ago, it takes certain milestones you have to go through. But last Thursday, they did approve each of these 4 projects. The one project that we're actually going to fast track is at the Washington School. It's a boiler replacement, and the SBA actually had given us, even before the board meeting, approval to at least advertise the project for bid. So the bids actually open up on that tomorrow, and we received the approval from the SBA yesterday, so we can fast track that to actually have the new boilers be installed before this winter. So we'll know more about the bid documents tomorrow, but I'll be working with Tom Moses, the CFO, to work with the City Council and actually amend some of the previous bonds that were authorized as part of the Amoresco performance contract, and we'll be reallocating some of those funds to this green repair project. But the great part really for both the city and the schools is now $4.8 million of these projects will be reimbursed by the SBA, which is incredible. Again, it lets us really do all 4 projects at the same time, and then also reallocate some of the funding from the Amoresco project to other projects that we wouldn't have been able to accomplish, because now we're shifting funds onto green repair. So it'll actually benefit both the city and the schools. So I am very excited. It was a great opportunity, I think, for us, and we're looking for possibly a second round of green repair funding, maybe in the next 6 to 8 months or so. That would certainly take us another year and a half to go through the process on, but there is potential for even more projects under this program. So happy to report that, and we'll be attending tomorrow the bid opening for the Washington boilers and have some more stable heat there at the school for the coming winter.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Mr. Conway?
Just very briefly, it's good to hear that these changes are being made, certainly overdue. Could you, do we have any type of status report on the heating system at the high school, where that might be going?
I don't.
I mean, I don't want to necessarily put you on the spot, but I mean, I know it's something that we're going to be discussing in December and January and February, and I'm just wondering that if we can kind of jumpstart this and figure out what are we going to do when we're faced with the fact that classrooms and our students and our staff are working in 40-degree, 45-degree weather.
Right. I don't have a report for you now. I mean, the trouble is the systems are ready to go for this coming season, and we really haven't turned on the heat yet. Usually around October 15th is when we start to heat the buildings, so we really won't know until the first real dip in the temperature as to what's going to happen. There was a significant amount of work this summer and this fall, both through our school staff and budget and the city staff and budget, to do some preventative maintenance that hadn't been done in previous years in those units to try to get a jump start on the heating season. So I am, hopefully optimistic on the overall start to this year. I can certainly report in as we get closer to the heating season as to when the systems all turn on and get going, if there's any foreseeable problems.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? The chair would like to ask for a roll call on this, since it does involve a substantial sum of money, $4.8 million. So motion to accept the report as a report of progress by roll call vote by Ms. Martin, second by Ms. Larraba. Roll call, please.
Ms. Larraba?
Yes.
Mr. Leahy? Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Thank you. And again, congratulations to all involved. Next item, technology update. Madam Superintendent?
Yes, thank you. I wanted Mr. Lang to just give a verbal update on what was happening with the technology study, the CELT study that was approved by this committee, and I just thought he could give you some knowledge about what's going on, so thank you.
Sure, just to keep the committee in the loop, last week with regard to the technology audit and the review of the district, it was also a busy week for them as well. It was the first week that we had some folks from CELT. There were 3 different groups of individuals that came into the district to assess our infrastructure, our policies and practices, and kind of the paper and the personnel that support our technology in the district, as well as the different review teams went out to elementary, middle, the high school, some of the alternative schools, to get a first-hand look at how technology was being used for instruction as well as administrative purposes in the schools. So that data gathering also included a series of focus groups that took place in the afternoons last week, when certain key stakeholders were invited, but we also opened it up to the school department at large if folks wanted to come to a particular focus group and give their input. And just to give you some sense of timeline going forward, the CELT team then goes back for about 2 weeks and who vets through all the information on their own. And we're expecting on Friday the 21st to receive, for those focus group participants, a report out of what their perceived findings and some very initial recommendations would be out of that. The following week, the week of the 25th, we'll actually get those focus groups together again, and they'll go through the information to make sure what the CELT folks recorded was really what was heard at the interviews, and make sure everyone was online. And then they'll actually issue us a a draft report of the initial findings and then some of their recommendations, probably around the second week in November. At that point, we'll at least get a sense of where they're looking for both this current year, as well as we do have them looking 3 to 5 years out, because they'll take the information in the draft findings and recommendations and start to work in a technology plan for us. And that'll be critical. We'll probably have some subcommittee meetings around technology and finance in late November, early December, to really start to, because we're not going to be able to do everything at once, but prioritize both at the school level and the school committee level and the administration level, which projects we really want to try to tackle, because they'll go back and put a technology blueprint and really a 3 to 5 year technology plan together for us based on our input. In that final plan will come, and they'll make a formal presentation to the school committee probably early January, which is perfect for us, and they did align that, so it also will help with our E-rate application for the coming year, as well as for budget planning purposes. So we'll know ahead of time what their recommendations will be. As I start to put the preliminary budget together in February, we'll have their report, and you'll have given that feedback about how quickly you want to work on different projects and how you want to prioritize. So it was a very busy week last week, both in the schools and at Central, to support their work. I did have a debriefing with them for a few hours on Friday afternoon. They thought everything went very well in the district as far as them getting a good sense on what we currently have, where our gaps are. And I am looking forward to some of their draft findings towards the end of October.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Mr. Leary?
Thank you, Madam Superintendent and Deputy Superintendent Lang. I think it's important that we get this draft report out, at least out to the public as well, as for by the 20th, when you receive it, and get it online so people can take a look at it and have comments. We can get some advice or at least some feedback from not only all our teachers and our staff, but anybody who has any interest in this, because we, as everyone knows, we're desperately in need of updating technology K through 12. We're just at the Moody and the Pine. The Pine, you go to the classrooms, computers in the classrooms can't get the internet for the most part. I mean, there's a couple that do work, but they have a computer lab working, but they can't do it in the classroom. In other types of areas where you're having special ed teachers trying to work with students, they don't have enough technology to really help a student, advance. So this is something that is imperative, and I like to see something move. Obviously, I want to see it move a lot quicker, but we need to make sure we do it right, because it is going to be substantial resources both for the equipment and for the support of staff to do it. So I thank you for the effort and look forward to looking at the report at the end of October. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. Anyone else on the, Mr. Lang?
I'm sorry, I just want to clarify one timeline. The report that we're going to get on the 21st of October needs to be reviewed by that focus group, because it's a lot of its notes, and CELT really wants to make sure what they recorded was what was adequately portrayed to them during the focus groups. It's that draft report that we'll get back probably a week or two later, early November, that we can actually put online, and then that will receive public comment, and additional focus groups will happen to get additional district perspective in November, December, as they're still fine-tuning. But I won't have anything to post by October 21st. It'll probably be the first 2 weeks in November.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much. Just a quick question. So basically, we'd be getting our the final copy with the final recommendations, lists of what we need to invest in, all that kind of stuff. That would be happening in the January timeframe?
Yes, by early January, the entire project will be wrapped up, and at that point, you will have your kind of audit and assessment of where we currently are. They will work with us, and we will have to have a series of meetings to prioritize for them where we want to go. That's what they term the technology blueprint. So we'll have that blueprint that'll be developed over November and December with public input, and then in January, they will do a public presentation and give some direction and recommendations of how to do your phasing. So, what would you do for an initial purchase? What would they recommend? What kind of professional development would need to go with that? What type of staffing resources would need to be there to make sure everything's aligned properly? And for our own budget purposes, I've asked for them to really take a look at multi-year approach to phasing this in. And one of the things that they caution on as well is they're over, and I don't want to get too deep into their initial findings, but overall, they actually were very impressed with our infrastructure, being able to support a lot more than it currently does. We obviously are, one of our material weaknesses was just the physical desktop computers that we have in classrooms, and it's not a surprise to anyone that we haven't been investing in that for years. Another kind of pitfall that they run into in communities, and they cautioned me on, and they'll also caution the report, is you don't want to go out and make a one-time purchase and put, $3 million into new computers in classrooms, and then not to be able to sustain that, because that equipment will be obsolete in a year and a half to 2 years. So you really do want to phase it, and it'll be a mixed approach to different technologies that they bring in. A key for them also, which makes a lot of sense, is it's really the type of curriculum and the instruction that we do should be driving the decisions we make around what we're going to purchase. So the second time that they come back with their finding and reports, we are going to want to get more input from classroom teachers and administrators to make sure we're getting the full district perspective on where we should be investing that technology.
I think that's exactly what we had charged them with, and that's will be an extraordinary amount of information for us to be able to, for it to be able to inform our decisions. The one thing I do want us to be aware of is that we entered into this with the understanding that we're in a unique year, and that this was our opportunity to make these purchases. I agree. The idea of just going out and buying a whole fleet of new computers, new desktops, does not accomplish our goals. But I do think that if we're getting this information in January, we're going to need to be able to move on it fairly quickly in this current fiscal year, because a lot of those one-time purchases are only going to be able to happen in this current budget year when we have access to this, again, this kind of budget anomaly that gave us a fiscal year that had room in it for these kinds of investments. And I think that's just something that, certainly the committee needs to be aware of, that as this comes in, we're going to need to move quickly to make those investments within this year, and if at all possible, include the professional development investments, because I think, as you had mentioned also, Mr. Lang, that's what's going to make this effective. There's no technology we buy that we put in front of the classroom that suddenly can teach students. That just isn't the way it works. We need to make the investments, and we need to, if we have the money to do it now, we need to be able to do it now. And if that's a summer institute or something like that, then we should really keep these things in mind, that we need to make these investments, some of them at least, in a very quick way, if we're going to get the big impact from it.
Mr. Lang?
They do know, and we were, I'm very impressed with their work. They've been excellent to work with so far. And they do know, and I've been very clear with them, that the committee has deliberately set aside some funding to do some one-time type purchasing. And I may not have portrayed it properly. What they were kind of saying to me, and I also agree with, is in that one-time money, we shouldn't just go buy 100% just the physical equipment and then not have the proper money for the PD to support it, or if there needs to be a contract with the firm to come in to help with the implementation, to have that be there. They definitely see that one-time money as something that they will actually recommend, and we will move on quickly, would be our recommendation, to really get in place this springtime. But it will be a complete package as far as what equipment should you buy, what supports do you need PD-wise, and then also if there are, say, service contracts that you need to purchase to maintain the equipment that is in place, that will all be part of that total sum. It won't be like we're making an investment that we then can't afford to support after it goes in.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Any other questions on the technology update? Motion by Mr. Leary, second by Ms. Martin, to accept the reporter's report of progress. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Next report, list of eligible teachers. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is the monthly report of eligible teachers for your review.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Motion by Ms. Doherty, second by Ms. Larrabee, to accept the report as a report of progress. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed to vote. The last report, personnel report. Madam Superintendent.
Yes, and this is the personnel report that you receive on a monthly basis for your review.
Thank you. Any questions? Motion by Mr. Conway, seconded by Mr. Leary, to accept the personnel report as a report of progress. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Any new business this evening? Under convention and conference requests, we do have 6. Mr. Conway.
Could we take them all together?
Motion by Mr. Conway to take all 6 together, second by Ms. Larrabee. All those in favor of taking the conference and convention requests together signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Anybody have any questions on any one of the 6 items? Hearing none, motion to approve by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Ms. Martin. Roll call.
Ms. Larrabee? Yes. Mr. Leahy? Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Thank you. Moving on to communications, we have one communication, informational Lowell Telecommunications Channel 10, broadcast of school committee meetings live on the first and third Wednesday of the month, Thursday at 9 p.m., Sundays at 2 p.m., and Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Motion to accept the communication placed on file by Ms. Martin, second by Ms. Doherty. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Under professional personnel, we have a letter from Paul Georges addressed to Dear Superintendent Franco. The members of the United Teachers of Lowell hereby request to donate sick leave days to the following teacher: Anna Galuppi, Bailey School, 39 days. Thank you for attention to this matter. Motion to approve by Ms. Martin, seconded by Mr. Leary. Roll call.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes.
Mr. Leahy? Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Thank you. Any civil service items? Before we adjourn, I just want to mention we all received a email from Superintendent Franco regarding Friday night's football game, Drake at Lowell High School at College Stadium. It's going to be televised by Channel 25, so we certainly want the viewing public and all of you and family members to be there. It's going to be a great game, so thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for that invitation. Motion to adjourn by Ms. Martin, second by Ms. Doherty. All those in favor signify by saying aye. We stand adjourned. Thank you.